Hello everybody, this is Cheri at djsundry.blogspot.com, and if you are joining me in from the crop, we are going to work on our watercolor card kit. So the first thing that I would like you to do is I would like you to find your score mark on it and fold it in half. And then if you have a bone folder, take your bone folder and fold it down. If you don't, just take a straight edge or something, your fingernail, and really crease that tightly. So that is the first step. Now, the next step that I want you to do is to open it back up, and I want you to choose one of the sides. This is going to be your front side. I want you to grab your paper trimmer, and we are going to trim, I think I'm going to trim a ½ an inch off. I may come back and trim more when I'm all done, but we're going to start with the ½ inch. Okay, so we'll set our paper trimmer aside. And again, we want to leave this open. We're going to be working on the shorter of the two sides. I know this sounds kind of funny, but that's the plan. Now what I would like you to do is find the piece of plastic. Now mine's kind of messy because I've already been playing with it, and I decided because I've been playing with it, I don't want to, I want to keep the paint on it. Now, if this is the first time you've done this, you might want to grab a scratch piece of paper and kind of play with it a bit, because it's a little bit more difficult than what I thought it was going to be. This idea actually came from a card that they did at the Close to My Heart convention this year, and though I didn't go, I really liked the card and the technique, but I changed the card up a bit to, first of all, make it my own, but I wanted to try something to do it a little bit differently than what they did. So what you see here is you see wells of watercolor paint. That's because I've already kind of mixed up some paint colors that I wanted. I took a green and a blue to make more closer to the sea glass. Now, it's not the exact sea glass, but it's close. And I wanted a darker pink than the lighter pinks, but I wanted a lighter pink than the dark pink. So I mixed my own, and then I wanted to change the purple a bit. So you're going to get your brush fairly wet. I'm using a really wide brush for this technique, and I'm going to start by picking up the more that's like sea glass, and this actually is working better, I can tell already, than the last times I did it. I don't know if I had too much water or if the bigger brush makes a difference, but all I'm doing is I'm painting right on that piece of plastic. And you want pretty good coverage. In fact, I think I want more pink than that, than what I've put there. So I want a pretty thick amount of coverage, and I want it to be pretty good brush strokes showing on there. And then now I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to pick up my purple. And there will be some overlap. That is perfectly acceptable. In fact, it's desirable because it's going to kind of run together. And I'm a little concerned about that green not being quite wet enough, so I'm going to go back in with a little bit more green, because it would have been just fine. But I want it to be I want it to be wet, but I don't want it to be soaked, if that makes sense. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to pick it up. Now again, remember, we're working on the short side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over, and I am going to set it on top of my cardstock, and I am just going to let it sit there a little bit and let that paper absorb some of that watercolor. And then another thing that I've tried to do, and we'll see how well it works, because this is actually the best coverage that I've gotten so far when I've tried to do this technique. But what I'm doing is I'm just kind of spreading it around with my finger. I don't want to slide the plastic around, because sliding the plastic will smear things in a way I don't want to. I want the colors to run together, but I don't want them to be too smeary. Okay, so there we have it. Now, there's another thing that you could do. What I'm going to do is, I personally don't like the way that looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in with my green, and I am just going to go back over it, clean off my brush, and I actually already like the way this is looking better. And we're going to go back over it. It's in layers, but so what you see is kind of that stippling effect that's under the underneath, going by the smear from the top. And you're going, boy, that doesn't really look like much. You're right, but I think you're going to see that this finished card is super fun. So if you don't like that kind of that stipling effect that's coming through, you could just start with a piece of cardstock. Now this isn't cardstock, but you could just start with a piece of cardstock and just start by going across. Now at this point my water's getting really muddied, so therefore my paints are getting muddied, but you see just going across. And I will make a sample card like that and show you the difference. It'll be at the end of the video, just in the photos. So now what I need to do is I need to let it dry. Now if you have an embossing tool, you could hit it with the embosser and let it dry that way, and that would speed up the process. I actually haven't gathered everything together that I want to use on this card, so we are going to I'm going to turn off the camera, and when I come back we'll finish up the card and you'll see how quick this is. Also when I come back I'll have the alternate card for you too. So come back in just a minute. Okay, so I'm back, and the stamp set that I'm going to be using is the Get Better Soon stamp. That is B1543, and I've already put that on my acrylic block, and we will come back to that later. I also will be using our sparkles, and I have to tell you, I didn't even notice it until tonight when I was prepping this video, but the sparkles come in a little Ziploc bag. These sequins are older sequins, and I don't know if they're going to be switching everything to Ziploc bags, but these were kind of the pill top bags. I really like that, so we'll just have to see if they're switching all the packaging. But we are going to be using some of those. Now, let's move on to the next step of the card. You want to be sure this is really dry, but what you'll notice is it's kind of warpy. Now, if you use watercolor paper, that may be a little bit less likely to happen, but it still happens a little bit. So that brings me to the next step. You remember, we're shorter on this edge than we are on the rest of it. And I thought about going back and doing cutting off another 1/4 of an inch, but I think I'm just going to leave it. And so that brings us to the piece of seafoam cardstock in your kit. And we're going to do it a little bit different than you might expect. We're going to actually put the adhesive on the back side of your watercolor side. And the reason why is because it is shorter. If you put it on your sea glass, you could potentially run over the edge where you don't want to be. Now, for this particular, since not everyone who sees this video will have a kit, just so you know, I cut this the size of what a folded card would be, or 4 1/4 inches wide by 5 1/2 inches long. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply line this up on the back side of the card, just like so. And there are different ways you can do it. This is just how I do it. You could do it a little differently if you wanted. And you're going to plan to fold that top right over on top of that and adhere it down just like that. So there we have our card front. Now, you could have gone the other way, and you could still do that. If you like this orientation, you could do that. I'm still going to keep my card going this way. Now, what I notice is something isn't cut quite right. Now, in this particular instance, I will be honest with you, this isn't a regular card base. This base got, I think it's one that I cut myself instead of using the card bases, so it is going to be possibly a little bit off. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line that up on my cutter so I can cut off the seafoam and have the edges meet. Easy fix. It happens. I do it on occasion. Okay, so now you see how that seafoam, why I wanted to match this closer to it. The other thing is, the reason I wanted to put this, you could just do a strip. I don't love that because I don't like to have a strip just on the back, but you can do that. But by doing that across, remember I said how it kind of warps a little bit? Well, that kind of flattens it out a little bit when it's adhered to something that is perfectly flat. Okay, so there we have our card front. Now we're ready to stamp. Now I haven't shown this in this group, prepping the stamp. Sometimes when you get a Close to My Heart stamp, there's a little bit of oil or something on it from the manufacturing process. Actually, anytime you get a clear stamp, that is potential. Close to My Heart is actually, I've had clear stamps much worse than this. I really don't typically have a lot of problems with Close to My Heart, but I still want to show you how to prep it. So the first thing that you can do, and this is something that I do, obviously before you ink up your stamp, just kind of rub it on your arm like that, and that just kind of gets rid of some of those extra oils. You might want to also do a practice stamp on a piece of scratch paper if you're not sure of the coverage. With this particular image, I'm not too worried because I'm going to be able to see really well if I have good even coverage. And I'm just going with our archival black ink because I want something really nice and bold against those watercolors. So I about forgot to grab my little stamp pad, and you can open it up. I think I'm going to, just because to make it a little bit flatter. And then I am just going to right in the center, although you could offset it if you wanted. But I'm going to just stamp in my Get Better Soon, and there we have it. Super easy, but I just like the impact that it has. Now you see that I thought I had wiped off the extra ink on my stamp, and there was a little bit there, but it's not super noticeable, so we're just going to go with it. So I'm going to close that up, and we're going to finish off our card, and that's where the sparkles come in. And my fingers just don't want to cooperate with me tonight. I think it's because it's been a really long week. So we've got our sparkles, and we are going to see, the nice thing about these clear sheets that they're on is you can kind of see your placement. I think I am going to just kind of, I don't adhere them strongly until I'm sure I like the placement. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of offset just like that. Now I will warn you, if you are mailing this particular card with those bitty sparkles on there, it's going to cost you extra postage because these do not mail well, quite frankly. I've had lots of bling before. One of them I put the wrong address on, so it came back to me, and when I got it, the bling was chewed through the envelope. So be real careful with that. So there we have our finished card. Now I finished the other card. I'm going to tell you some mistakes I made with the other card. I completely did it differently. The first thing is I changed it. It's a portrait type card. The other thing I did is it wasn't quite dry when I adhered this on the back of it, so that's why you see the bubbling here. It's just because it wasn't quite dry. And so then I stamped it. This stamp set comes with one of the Cricut cartridges, and it says the little things, but I still liked it. Now this purple is the retired purple from the adventure pack, but I really liked that purple with this one, and I had it accessible, so I went ahead and did the same thing. But you kind of see the difference. On this one, I just swiped it right on the card. And now when you're doing that, there is something that you should know. Before you put your paint down, you should run with a clean brush and clean water. You should wet your card base first. And I just do that by taking the card, the water, and my big brush, and I just wipe it all over where I'm going to paint. And the reason why in this particular case is you want those inks to kind of move together, and if that card base is a little bit wet, you can do that. I love working with watercolors. This is a really simple technique, and it's got a lot of impact, but you can do so much with watercolors. So I really encourage you to get out and play with watercolors. There's a lot of videos that have a lot of watercolor techniques on it. There are even classes available out there if you're so interested. And I took one and really enjoyed the class and learned a lot during the class. Can't remember it, but I learned a lot. So get out there. There's a couple of different techniques you can use. These were straight colors, not colors that I mixed. I just kind of slapped them down on the paper, And so they're a little bit brighter because I wasn't going for the more muted because I'm not trying to match the seafoam. I was wanting for something a little bit bright. Now I will tell you that if you are part of the virtual crop, or even if you aren't, well, if you're part of the virtual crop, anyone during the crop that orders a set of our Close to My Heart watercolors, and I will put the link directly to the watercolor page below, will receive an extra 2 virtual tickets, just because I think that you will really love them, and I think you will enjoy trying them. So when you place your order and you add those in, just let me know. Just put a comment in the box on the Facebook page and just let me know that you've ordered them, and I will add a couple of extra tickets just because I think that you'll really enjoy them. So thanks so much for stopping by today, and remember, take some time to enjoy the little things. Have a great day. Bye. Hi everybody, I am back with one other quick thing. If you are part of the virtual crop and you have received the kit, you are going to notice a couple of pieces of white cardstock mixed in with this particular kit. And the reason why I have done that is because I wanted to give you some paper to kind of practice on before you go into your card base, so you can kind of get a feel for using your watercolors, and you can kind of get a feel for which you like better and how you like to do it, whether you want to use the plastic like I did on this card, or whether you want to just swipe it directly on the card base like I did on this card. And so I will put those in there. That I will not include Close to My Heart cardstock. I've just got some really inexpensive cardstock that I'm just going to cut across, and it's kind of, you know, your office grade cardstock, so it's not the higher quality cardstock that we have with our cards and things, but it'll give you a feel for how to use the paints. Thanks so much.